Well, welcome everybody to episode 3 of When Tomorrow Comes. Now, the first couple of episodes we've done have probably been more about looking towards the future. So the first episode was looking at technology. The second week we were thinking about the way that local authorities in particular were responding to the forced changes from Corona. But I got an email from a colleague last week, which was the equivalent of a virtual elbow in the ribs, and it was just to remind me that we were getting up to 3 weeks for a lot of people of home working, and that was quite a critical period for a lot of people from an isolation perspective. And it was off the back of that conversation we decided this week to think about the importance of health and well-being for people when working from home. So this week I'm joined by 2 colleagues, joined by Leona, Hannify, who was the person that gave me the equivalent of the elbow, and also Gill, Eaton. But I'm delighted to say that we've also got a couple of special guests, and we did promise that we'd have other people that would join us on our vlogs. So we've got James Pereira, and we've also got Zita Wa-Tulyahikayo, and they're from the Libra partnership, and I'll allow them to explain a little bit more about that in due course. But Leona, if I could perhaps start with you, because as I say, you were the person that gave me the prompt to just say, come on, just think about how everyone's dealing. Can I just ask you perhaps to just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ian. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I suppose the key thing for us is, as you said, I think we're 20 plus days into this process now. And I think certain things have come really easy, like remote working. Our systems, our IT, brilliant. We're all doing this video calling, super smooth, actually maintaining kind of continuity between clients. That all seems to be going really well. I think then the other thing you're kind of aware of is just making sure, actually, we've had such a major change. And while we're doing so brilliant with certain things, are we always checking in on our own well-being, on people's, whether that's their mental health, making sure they're doing the really simple kind of basic things. And I think what triggered it for me was actually an email we had received, which said that actually, yeah, when you get to week 3, I guess a bit of the novelty can wear off a little bit. And maybe people can kind of start to feel, gosh, this is tough. And also the fact too that one big thing for me, and I think we're finding it as a company when people talk about issues, is there's no end date at the moment, which is really tough. We don't know if it's at week 6, week 9, week 12, which for humans I think is a really tough thing to kind of get your head into. So there's no easy fix, I don't think, but I think it's just good to talk about these kind of things and make sure everyone knows we're there to support each other. We'll all have up days and down days, and it's just kind of making sure, and having a chat today, I guess, is good about kind of skills and things that we can be doing to kind of keep ourselves on track.
And Gill, you're in many respects, you're kind of our resident well-being champion, aren't you, for not just for Iceni, but more broadly within the planning and property sector. Do you want to just say a little bit about the sort of things that you've been focusing on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ian. So we ran a series of workshops for Mental Health Awareness Week last year. And James and Zita kindly came in and gave a mindfulness session for all our team, which was really helpful. And I see it very much as, how can we upskill ourselves? How can we enhance our professional performance? How can our emotional intelligence, help in these areas? But we're very mindful that we're not experts, so hence turning to James and Zita to get their contributions and input about what can we do to help ourselves and each other in this situation.
So James, you did that for us last year. Thank you very much. And we thought we might see you in the office this year. We're obviously seeing you on the screen instead. For a lot of people, perhaps tuning in and watching this, I say, hang on a minute, I thought James was a barrister. I thought he was an eminent QC. How's he got time to, as a barrister, got time to do other things as well? So would you and Zita just perhaps mind just giving us an overview of the Libra partnership and the sort of coaching exercises that you tend to do for people?
Sure. So let me just say a little bit about what we do. So I'm still a barrister. I'll let other people judge whether eminent or not, but I'm still a barrister, and I divide my time really between the barristering side and the coaching side. And what I found is that they both complement each other quite nicely in terms of skills and so on. So we coach, we've got our own coaching practices, but we come together, we do coaching one-on-one, we do team coaching, and we do training. And between us, we've got some training in common that we've had. We've got other skills that are different. I'll let Zita say a little thing in a minute, but I'm trained in organizational coaching and NLP, which involves some hypnosis and so on, and also trained in some family related work, resolving family issues and so on. Zita?
Well, I'm trained initially as a certified clinical hypnotherapist, which took me into coaching, which brought me then to the systemic approach, which was really looking, rather than just focused on who we are as individuals, all the systems that we belong to, be it family or work, and then also as couples. Couples and families are many organizations in themselves and run sometimes in quite similar ways. So there's a crossover or transference of skills that can be taken from the individual that we can use in work and apply to family.
Brilliant. So, Gill, it might be worth just sort of recapping the sort of things that that we discussed during last week's mental health week, and and then maybe you and Leona and with James and Zita can just sort of reflect on perhaps sort of things that we should be keeping an eye on for ourselves, our families, and our colleagues.
Yeah, so we've done a checklist that we've sent out to our team this week with some kind of signposting things, just to remember things around routine, diet, sleep, all the basics really. But as I say, it's just to get some views from you that we can share with our, with our colleagues and wider audience that's helpful at this time really. James, thanks.
Okay, well, shall I kick off? I mean, the basics are really important. The simple things are really important. Checking in with people, getting some kind of routine, diet, exercise, getting outside, getting fresh air, getting sunlight. I mean, they're small things. I think what happens in moments like this is we, after a while, and as you said, we're in week 3, we suddenly start to miss some of the things that we took for granted. And so it's important that as much as we can, we try and maintain what we've already had, because that's what we're used to. But looking a bit wider than that, I think there are, in no particular order, there are a number of things. I think the first thing is just to normalize what everyone's going through. This isn't a normal situation, but it is normal to feel anxious or concerned or not knowing when it's going to end and all of that, and for that to bring up stuff in us. That's absolutely natural. Nothing wrong with anyone if that happens. I guess another thing to say is there are, although we all miss face-to-face connection in people's physical presence, there is a sense in which the kind of virtual world can really support connection. So we know from texting and from Twitter and from things like that actually a lot of people feel more able to express themselves online in a way that face-to-face sometimes they don't. And sharing is one of the ways of building connection and intimacy and a sense of belonging. And so sharing is something the online world enables us to do quite easily if we're willing to step into it. The other thing I'd say about the online world is it's relatively easy to gather around you like-minded people who you can share common experiences with. And that, again, that sense of bonding is another thing which the virtual world that we're in has advantages in, actually, over the face-to-face, the physical world. So I wouldn't want people to think that because in the sense we're in isolation that we're away from each other, because at the same time as being away from each other, this world, like the conversation we're having now, gives us real opportunities to come together as well.
Yeah, I think going on from that point, language can be helpful. Social distancing implies that we should keep away. Whereas if we think of spatial distancing, which is about keeping space, but maintaining that contact in a close rhythm to what we would experience when we are in the office space. So during a break, you might have a quick chat with somebody, or you might wander into somebody else's office and talk about work, and maybe something personal is exchanged. So it's important to keep that contact in that way.
One thing that I've been reflecting on, because probably like a lot of people, you sort of start with your daily routine, you look at Twitter, you look at LinkedIn, and what I've started to feel is that I'm getting a little bit, it's becoming almost like white noise to see the constant updates from people with smiley faces talking about how wonderful they're doing from their home office, and how they're open for business. I mean, if I hear that sort of expression thrown out one more time, I'll have to punch myself, because I can't punch anyone else. But I kind of wonder whether we also need a little bit more honesty. That constantly putting up images on LinkedIn saying how wonderful things are is perhaps not. It's not helping us. And Leona, I know we've spoken about that.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think it's kind of funny how everybody's become. I was actually on a call last night with some of my girlfriends, and one of the girls said, "Yeah, so today I baked focaccia bread. It was really easy." And I was like, what? First of all. And she said, yeah, like it only took 4 hours and yeast, and I went in like every half an hour. And I was like, it's an amazing skill. It's great. Well done. But equally, everyone's making artisan bread. Everyone's learning a new language. Everyone's, doing yoga 7 times a day. And you're kind of like, actually, what did I do at the weekend? Well, I just sat around. I just kind of chilled out. And it's like, I'm not very great on social media anyway. Thankfully, I'm not that into it. But I've even found a little bit in Instagramming. You're just seeing people are all, I think it's that we want to share something, but you want to share something interesting, because a photo of you sitting in your pajamas watching telly is not a great look for anybody. Definitely not mine anyway. So, but there is this kind of pressure nearly. And then actually it's kind of saying, well, do you know what? If you manage to get up each morning at a respectable time, you eat, you clean yourself, like, dare I say, there's a lot to be said about the basics. And if you make the artisan bread, delicious, wonderful, but equally it's okay that you don't have to, and nor do we all have to be like, yeah, this is so easy, because actually in my instance it's juggling work, a toddler, and just general life, and everybody has different circumstances. Everyone's really different, but it's like, actually in some ways you're busier than ever. Yeah. So I don't really have time to do the artisan bread making. And I keep thinking, well, I'll find time, because this is going to go on for a while. But it's kind of like, it's funny how society, which is us, we do this to ourselves. It's like another layer of pressure, I guess.
Well, it's partly what's not really spoken about is the grief for the loss of the life that we had, that has now rapidly changed, and we don't know, as you were talking about, unknowns, when it's going to come back. And much like just after a funeral, some people go out and make stacks of mince pies, and some people cry in corners, and some people get super busy and do the things that they've never done before, because the sense of life has taken on a new meaning. And I think it's supportive if we all recognise that each individual has their own way of doing it, but not get caught up in, I should be doing this. Well, if you want to do nothing, that's okay. It's about really sort of allowing ourselves to be all right with where we are, because it is new and it is different, and we don't know when it's going to end, and we will go through an arc of varying emotions as we pass through time.
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things about that. Yesterday I had a message from a colleague saying, can I just have a chat with you sometime this afternoon? We had a chat. And all they really wanted to do was just vent about something that had happened. And that's something that might happen quite naturally at work, face to face. You can just, knock on someone's door or wander up to their desk. And we kind of feel like we need an excuse to call people now. But those things need to happen. And you're right, it's all of us, there's a kind of mosaic in our lives. We're not all happy all of the time. It's not all brilliant all of the time. So we need to allow for that, and we need to also understand that we might not need to call somebody, but someone might need to call us. We might not need to attend the work drinks or the work tea at 4 o'clock, but someone might gain something from our presence there. So being there for other people is important. I think on the not feeling great and all the stuff that gets posted about people's lives, it's kind of that Facebook phenomenon that everyone's lives are brilliant, aren't they? But we know that they're not. And actually, one of the things, if you can be really daring, one of the things about events like this is to give yourself permission to sink into the dark places that the busyness of everyday life doesn't allow you to, or doesn't give you time to, or that we avoid by stepping out and going into the office and getting busy. If you can sink into those places and really give yourself permission to think, okay, I'm going to get up at 10 o'clock every morning rather than 8 o'clock. And I'm going to try and not feel bad or guilty about it. And all of those things, we can learn so much from that. I guess what tends to happen is these events concentrate or accentuate things that are already there for us, but tend to get sidelined a bit. You know, if we've got troubles with our partner or with our wives or our husbands, events like this will tend to bring them into sharper focus. If we've got problems with managing stress at work, events like this will tend to bring it into sharper focus. But the flip side of that is they also give us a chance to really face them and give ourselves permission to sit with them and think about what we might do with them.
And Gill, if I can ask you, how if it doesn't sound too obvious a question, how do we ask for help? I mean, I'm conscious that I can say to people at Iceni, look, if you have any problems, let me know. But they might not want to let me know because they might feel that that's a weakness to say, I need help. So have you got any thoughts on how people constructively deal with the times when they're struggling?
Yeah, so I think if people are willing to talk about their own stuff, then they're open and expressing their vulnerability, and it gives other people permission to do so as well. And then you become an obvious person to reach out to because you've expressed your stuff, and you know you can hopefully help. And that's very much my perspective. I think, you know, the more the dialogue there is, the more we help each other, and it's really normal to be stressed out in this kind of situation. So, you know, for me, it's that creating that two-way exchange, that you help each other, you show your vulnerability, you know, you get each other through situations. And I think drawing on James is brilliant because he understands the world we all work in. You know, he gets that planning dynamic and what's in the melting pot for us professionally. So for me, that was a really, you know, it's been a really good collaboration with PropFit and a few other things that we've done to get this message out a bit more broadly.
I'm conscious of time, and I'll start probably getting emails from James Bompass, our colleague, who always tells me we go on far too long. But before we close, I'd like to perhaps give James and Zita the opportunity, if they wanted to just do a kind of any summing up comments, any sort of constructive thoughts that we can leave people with.
So I'll say one thing, which is this. There's a book we've both been reading recently called Tribe, and forgive me because I can't remember who it's written by, but he talks about the phenomenon that people who go through difficult times, the bonding that it gives them, you know, people who have gone through war together or famine or something like that, it brings people together so much so that they often miss the hard times when they come to an end. And so this is a great opportunity that we've all got for really focusing on our relationships, whether it's our personal relationships, our work relationships, our client relationships, because when we come through this and we look back and think, you know, how are we there for each other? How did we support each other? Those kinds of questions will reflect on what kind of relationships we have at the end of this. So there are great opportunities for us to kind of step up and be there for each other right now.
Zita?
And on a really simple level, keep it simple. Be present with each moment. Okay, in this moment I'm working, in this moment I need to take a break. And each of these moments adds up and passes by, rather than it stops us going into anxiety or fear or insecurity and doubt, and we can be present with what we're experiencing in each moment, and then we have the opportunity to just be kind with ourselves wherever we are.
Well, that's brilliant. And James, if Iceni can't recommend a book called Tribe, I don't know what we can do. So let's give. I think I've got some Easter reading. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Leona and Gill. Thanks for the constructive digging and reminding me when we need to take these things seriously. I'm sure it's a subject we'll come back to over the coming weeks and possibly months, depending on how long we find ourselves in these straitened times. But thanks ever so much for joining us today. And for those watching, look forward to seeing you for episode 4 next week. Tsk you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.